Could you tell me about the Green Trust? That's,
Green Trust payment,
yeah,
that is a, that was our, some of our repairs through the New Jersey Infrastructure Trust grant program several years ago when the ARA funding came out. We actually got free money, 0% interest, loan money that we did make some repairs, and that's being paid, that's what the Green Trust is.
thank you. That's all I have.
Any questions, comments from members of council? Any questions, comments from members of the public who'd like to come comment on just the budgets? Raise your hand, wait to be called on. David?
I go for the mic?
Yes, sir.
Hi, but I can address them to Robin, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Robin.
I didn't.
The state aid that we get, for that state education aid, right? That's comes from the state income tax that we pay, right? You
I'm
know.
sure it comes from a lot of different places.
No,
Us under,
The
this
state
is not.
state education aid that
We
comes
don't
directly
get
from the.
state education aid, that was.
State education aid is a part of this budget.
We get
Oh, that's not.
consolidated municipal property tax relief and energy receipts tax. Is 400
Oh, I see. So the million or so that we get for the state education aid, that has nothing to do with
Doesn't come to
this
us,
budget.
that
It
goes
goes
directly
directly
to
to
the
the school.
and.
Okay, all right, good. There hasn't been any relaxation of state mandates, you know, due to the storm and all the budgetary pressures. There's still all the stuff that they require us to do that they don't fund. We still have to do, right?
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah. Okay, now the municipal part of the budget, that's up by 4 million, is it?
I
4.1
believe so,
million?
yes.
And the FEMA community disaster loan is a little bit more than that, 4.5
The 4.
million, although that's spread over, I know.
Right.
So it's not really covering so much a drop in revenue. The drop in revenue has been $4 million, right?
Let me go back one step. $4.4 million was spread across all 4 budgets,
Right.
right? So are you talking about the total or just the current budget?
Well, okay, the total drop in revenue, is it like over $4 million?
No, the way we worked the $4.4 million, I think the mayor explained, was it's not only to cover a loss of revenues, it's also to cover if there's any potential unreimbursed expenses, other emergencies that we're still running into. We
Right.
got pothole repairs, things like that all over town, small equipment on our beachfront, things like that. So the way we split the 4.4 was almost like a 60-40, 60% going to revenues, about 40% going to unreimbursed expenses.
So the 40% would be for like increased budget expenses that
Yes.
were, I see.
That we couldn't potentially do otherwise because we have other things we have to pay for because of
But that were
revenue.
storm related.
Right.
I see. So, but that couldn't be just part of the FEMA emergency thing, that has to be a loan, not a part of a FEMA grant or something. I know that the mayor says 98% of the time that it's reimbursed, but shouldn't that be under a regular FEMA disaster grant?
Again, we're trying every method of getting reimbursed for every dime.
Yeah.
We've gone through insurance, we've gone through that. There's still other grants coming out through CDBG, things like that.
Yeah.
We have to take the loan, we will, you know.
Yeah, I do want to make the point that, you know, although we haven't raised taxes this year, we borrowed a lot of money, so that there's a pretty good likelihood in future years we are going to have to raise taxes. Isn't that true?
I will make comment on it.
Yeah, and even if the tax money doesn't come from these folks here, it's going to come from somewhere, right? If FEMA pays it, it's still coming from taxpayers somewhere, right? Yeah, okay.
If it comes from FEMA, it came out of my paycheck too, so.
Yeah, and all Americans, yeah. So, okay, I'm almost done. I know there's a ratio that the state always looks at, that's the debt as a percentage of the total ratables of the town.
Yes.
And that's been running around 0.6%, if I'm not mistaken.
I would say
the last-
probably, yes, I don't have the debt statement right in front of me, but. Did we do debt statement? We did a supplemental debt statement in June. See it?
Well, I'm glad you have it with you, that's good. But, I think in past years, it's been around 0.5 to 0.6%, right?
1.2,
1.2% this year, right?
yes.
So
That was after we did the water sewer project. Added the water sewer project to 5.
right.
$4.1, whatever it was.
Right,
4.7.
and the state has a limit, 3.5,
3.5.
3.5%, 3.5%? Really? Oh, okay.
3.5%.
So
we
we
monitor-
were 0.6, now we're 1.2, and the wall that we can't go past is 3.5, right? Okay, all right, that's it, thank you.
Is this the year in the cycle that we are reviewed by the state?
State did review our budget, we've received approvals. Yes.
So what is that cycle, every how many years?
It's every 3 years, but because we had the emergency appropriations last year anyway, we would have been within review just because we had those emergency appropriations. So, but it is every 3 years.
No, and one of the things that I want to touch on that Robin said as well is that the amount of being raised through property taxes is declining about $50,000.
Right.
But I don't want anyone to think that that's a tax cut, because more than likely that 50,000 will come back next year. So I don't want anyone to say, well, they raised taxes in 2014, because we're just keeping it flat as
Right.
far as what the 65
Rate.
cents on a
Tax rate,
right,
65.
what the tax rate is flat. So what we're collecting, what we're anticipating to collect rather, is less, but I don't want people to think that you're gonna see a reduction in your taxes and then have an increase the next year. It's staying flat, just as it was in 2011, 2012, and this budget year, 2013, all 3 years flat. Any other public? Yes, Bob.
Bob Lynch, 316 9th Avenue. Not gonna make it squeal, I hope.
Don't get too close.
Yeah. Some of the people were concerned about the 90 parking spaces that were lost on the beach run. I think Robin calculated it out, but was there any consideration to put some numbers on the west side, of Ocean Avenue, since the system now seems like it would be easily adapted to add a few more parking spaces on the west side?
Not as of right now. We'll see how the season goes.
Okay. And that was the softball question, now the hardball question. The community development loan?
Community disaster.
Disaster loan. We're taking that loan, it seems like we're applying the whole $4.48 million to this year's budget. Is there any way that could have been, do we have to apply it all to this year's budget, or could we have put like $2.5 million in this year's budget, 2.5 year available for next year's budget?
Yeah, you want to?
We have 3 years to use the funds, and so we applied it in this budget, again, to be conservative and to be realistic about potential impacts for our revenue. Anything we don't use could be advanced to next year.
Okay.
Correct, Rob?
We would actually just cancel it off, which would then leave available for the following.
Because it just,
It could be in 2013's budget, 2014.
if we do get additional revenues, if we're trying to offset loss of revenues, if we do pick up some revenues throughout the year, then we'll have some surplus from that loan that we could apply to next year.
We won't have to use as much of it.
Right. But I think from a layman's perspective, it just makes you real nervous that we have a large amount of money, over $4 million, that we're showing as revenue this year to offset taxes, or offset our spent expenses. And we won't have that next year. And so next year we would have to, if we use it all this year, next year we would have to say that all of those revenues are going to come back on stream that we're not going to have this year.
Well, again, the total amount that they allocate to you is over 3 years. Now, for instance, we look at the beach utility numbers, right? Last year we did about $3 million to
Yes.
each fund.
I think we put about $2 million into it this year, right?
No, we have about $1.6 million, right?
From the loan.
No, $1.6 million
I'm
is
seeing.
we think we're going to generate in
Yeah.
sales. Brian reported today that we already did $1.3 million. So we have 2 months to do $1.7 million, and we did $1.3 million in the wettest June in recorded time, I guess. So, we think that we're going to be in pretty good shape. If something catastrophic happens, yeah, could we in theory use all 4.5 million in this budget? We could. Will we? No, because it's not, it's gonna be allocated over that 3-year period. We're just showing it all in this year. So I don't want you to think, wow, you have $4.5 million this year, next year you're gonna have to raise taxes $4.5 million to make up for it. It's not gonna operate like
I don't think it's gonna be that much. It'll be, you're gonna have some increased revenues that we've kind of, we lowered our slip amount of revenue from slip fees. We lowered the amount of revenue from the beachfront. So those are gonna come back, but,
Revenue, yep. Yeah.
but it still looks like, it's gonna be hard to make up $4.5 million next year. That's just my concern.
Right, but again, it's not as if you have $4.5 million this year that you're not gonna have next year, because you're not gonna use all $4.5 million in this year's budget. It's gonna be spread out over 3 years, assuming the next 3 years are anything similar to the last.
But if we don't need it this year, the definition is that you need it for shortfalls. If we don't have a shortfall this year and we have a surplus, then we're gonna have to pay that surplus of the loan back. If we only use $2.5 million of it, and we have there's like $2 million that we didn't use from the loan, then it's not a shortfall. It wasn't used for a shortfall. So how do we get away with applying it for next year? That would be my question.
Because it's for a total of 3 years.
Okay.
So we're taking all this year, almost think about a home equity line of credit. $4.5 million home equity line of credit. Imagine
I got a hell of a house.
Yeah.
You're using that for this year, but you only end up using $1.5 million.
Okay. All right. As long as it's a 3-year plan then.
Correct.
Okay.
My understanding from speaking with FEMA is what they do is they come back after 3 years and they review your revenue cycles over those 3 years and see how much did you really lose.
Right. Okay.
Or have an unreimbursed expenses, right?
Thank you.
And thanks for getting the lake outflow going again. I noticed I happened to be there today, it was flowing in, but that meant it was open.
All right, seeing no other comments, questions on the public hearing for the resolution adopting the 2013 municipal budget, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. Next is the resolution. I will offer and move for adoption. Resolution adopting the 2013 municipal budget.
Second.
Councilman Becky?
Yes.
Councilman Yelford?
Yes.
Councilman
A couple quick comments. I went over this budget very thoroughly, and I was trying to figure out how to explain it to everybody. I think Catherine from the patch actually had perfect words on order. The total budget is growing at $24.665 million. The 2013 budget is about $4.1 million more than 2012. So basically, we're borrowing $4.5 million to increase spending $4.1 million. Let me repeat that. We're borrowing $4.5 million because we have expenses of $4.1 million that we need to cover because we did balanced budget. So basically, this money is not being used to pay down our debt or anything. It's not like, oh my gosh, we need a loan because we have debt we can't take care of. It's basically used to balance our budget. That's what we're using this money for, is to balance our budget. And we pat ourselves on the back saying, hey, no tax increase, yet we borrow $4.5 billion. Something I hate more than tax increases is debt, because you can put it off and have somebody else down the road pay it off. Hey, we'll take out debt. Instead of raising taxes, we'll just put debt on our shoulders, and 10 years from now, we can pay it off. It's the federal government, same game. You know what, I look how far we've come in 3 years. I kind of think we're almost Detroit. We need a financial bailout from the federal government, which is this federal disaster loan. Our entire town is designated in need of rehabilitation, and our debt is pretty significant. And when I asked for $1.1 million to fix a pipe that's actually flooding people's house, we don't have the money for it. We can't afford it. We don't have the money for it. You know what? This is the Belmar that I remember years ago, probably 5 years ago when I started coming to these meetings. Our long-term financial plan is, if we're hoping this loan turns into a grant. We're crossing our fingers. If that works out, this budget is awesome. But you know what? I never seen, if you're borrowing money to make your household budget break even, you got problems. I can see maybe a little bit, 4.1 million, and we're increasing spending. If Belmar's being run like a business, I think we're MF Global or Enron. This is like two budgets before they collapse. If I had one word to describe this budget, it's decadence. We are partying today, not even worried about the debt hangover that's coming years down the road. So in 3 or 4 years, when this FEMA loan has to be paid back, are we even going to be up here? I probably won't be. I'm just saying, people that are borrowing this money probably won't even be up here telling the people, hey, I got to raise taxes. We got to pay back this debt. The beach utility is devastated. It's down to like 700,000, and we spent at the level, assuming we're having the same great year that we had last year and the year before. And the weather just isn't there. So, and this 98% of the time, the FEMA loan is forgiven. You know what? I'm going to do the financial plan of Belmar, cross my fingers and hope that this is true. The article in the Co-Star, when Haley called the FEMA guy, he said, no, it's not 98. He didn't even say a statistic. I don't care what the percentage is. I'm just hoping that this FEMA loan turns into a grant, because that will be the saving grace of Belmar. And if it doesn't, we're in trouble. I think this budget is decadence. I really do. So I'm voting no.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Mayor Darrell?
Yes, and just to, I think I'm starting to bore myself explaining this. To explain how the community disaster loan works. If we hit all our revenue numbers, then we would have the surplus to repay the loan if we need to in 3 years. And I can tell you, I plan on being on this dais in 3 years. And as long as I'm the mayor, I am not going to propose a budget for this council to look at that's going to raise taxes unless we absolutely, positively, no other way around it, have to. The major increases in this budget are to deal with the worst natural disaster our town ever faced. To vote no on it is to say that we shouldn't pay the bills for the natural disaster.
That's actually,
Makes no sense.
our payment of bills are coming up. I'll read a couple off, so we'll see.
Well, you can explain that. So, again, I'm voting yes. This is the 3rd year we have no tax increase in Belmar. I'm very proud of this budget. We are on a strong financial position, even though we're overcoming the devastation of Sandy. And there's going to be things that are going to be Sandy related for the rest of this year, and I got to imagine into next year as well. So the budget passes. Next resolution.
Actually, we should do public session. Sorry, Mayor, to interrupt. We should do the public session for the resolution.
Oh, thank you for interrupting. That's right. So public session, I'm going to open a public session on resolution calendar. So I don't have a comment or question. This is just on the resolution calendar. David, imagine it.
Does that include the first reading of ordinances?
No, that's the ordinance calendar. Seeing none, oh, yes, sir. On the resolution calendar.
Saw the resolutions up tonight, right?
Yes, sir.
Henry Grau, 116 14th Avenue. That resolution for the taking away the money from the animal houses, refunding the bond. Is that on there?
Are you talking about in the pay bill list?
Oh, no,
Resolution down there.
in the back, on the back.
Authorizing refunds. I don't know.
That's a resolution refunding a property in animal house bond because it expired. Is that any violations or?
But that's automatic, right? You don't need a resolution for that, right? It's just automatic. Isn't that the ordinance?
Resolution to do a refund.
Just like we refund that.
Oh, you don't, okay. All right, thanks.
All right, seeing none, I'll make a motion to
right.
All right, so we have a resolution, authorization of payment of bills. So we have two resolutions.
There's two payment bill lists.
Let's do the first one where Councilman McGovern has to recuse
Has a
himself.
conflict.
Okay.
He has potential for appearance of conflict. I'll offer a move for adoption.
Second?
Councilman Benke?
Yes.
Councilman Dean?
I have no idea which one this is. Which one's on this?
This is,
That's
one
short.
payment.
The shorter one.
Is this like one page, one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Councilman Bigler?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes.
And we have a longer bill list, that I'd like to advise the mayor that he has a potential appearance of conflict on, and recommend that he recuse himself.
Does Jim have a conflict on this too, working for Stavola?
I probably do.
The vote is listed on this bill list, yes. I think last meeting, council set out a preponderance of caution, and maybe a little bit.
Now Matt's sitting down, why? Because of,
Ashford is on the bill page.
and Stavola is a subcontractor of Ashford also?
Actually, no, suppose on the pay bill list. So
Stavola
it doesn't
is on the
have to
pay
be
bill
a-
list.
But I have questions I want to ask about the pay bill before I decide if I'm going to vote or not.
It answers your question. I mean, in Belmar, Ashford did the debris cleanup work. Stavola was a subcontractor to Ashford. That's not the work that we're paying Stavola for today.
So Stavola didn't do any work in Belmar, they did like in Seabright and like that?
To my understanding, yes.
So-
The bill pay for Stavola on this bill is for asphalt supplies that we bought separate from the debris.
Okay, so he's not in conflict working for Stavola that works for Ashford?
Remember, the council is in conflict on a vote. Are they permitted to speak on that resolution?
No.
Okay. Am I advising the document?
Well, or maybe, I don't know, I might challenge that. I don't know.
Would you like to
I'm
please
gonna,
advise the
you
council?
know what, I'm gonna not take your advice at this time, council, thank you.
Can you explain to me what your advice is?
I'm sorry, Mayor?
Can you explain what your advice is to the council?
Well, there's an actual conflict and there's the appearance of a conflict. The effective vote is essentially the same. So voting and speaking on it is, in a sense, the same thing.
Speaking,
That's
really?
my- that's my-
Speaking?
That's my thought on it.
Okay, thank you.
So why does Matt have to sit down?
I think he chooses to.
Matt has recused himself on advice of council.
Okay.
So do we have a motion to approve bill list number 2?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Councilman Benke?
Yes.
Councilman Bigler?
Yes.
Councilman Dean?
A couple questions real quick. Ashford, we're still paying Ashford $700,000. Are we done with them? What's this for?
We are, as bills are reconciled and verified, we continue to make it.
How much more we owe? Any idea? Maybe
We don't have the final reconciliation. This is a good chunk of what we owe.
Okay, repairs to Chevy Suburban, $8,000. What happened? Just garage.
If we were in an accident, we have an insurance money pending for that amount as well.
What happened yet? Somebody hit us? Did we hit them? Why? Because we already got it fixed. Anybody?
It was in a vehicular accident, and we are pending with insurance.
Palm trees, 2,600. Remember, $4.5 million borrowing, buying palm trees, because we need this money. Decadence, guys.
Landscape, that's landscaping costs for the beachfront.
All right. I see my ball in there. You know what? I'm gonna recuse myself. This ball's in there. Thank you.
Councilman Bigler?
Yes.
Next is the consent agenda. I'll offer.
One resolution, one other.
Oh, I'm sorry, resolution, wow. Designated 500 Main Street, urban renewal partners, the big developer, as redeveloper and authorizing execution of a redevelopment agreement. Sorry, Gary, this has been here for the last 4 hours. Thank goodness Bill Northgrave bills us by the hour. So this is a resolution that will effectively allow us to, or allow Barry to begin working on the old Havens and Hamptons property. Barry is the developer at 8th and Main, did a phenomenal job with that property. It's fully rented, right?
Yes, it is.
So the upstairs is, and then downstairs is size new space. So, here's a guy who, in a tough economy, built a tremendous building and, knows what he's doing business-wise, knows how to build. And this is going to be an exciting project. It's right down the street from me, so personally, I'm looking forward to it. And it's a great gateway into Belmar, coming from Avon over the bridge, and to see something that he's going to build really be wonderful.
Mayor, I'd like to add that at the last planning board meeting, we memorialized phase 1 for the Pied Piper building. So people might like to know, people might be disappointed that the Pied Piper building is scheduled to be coming down shortly after Labor Day also. So
That's great,
that's good.
We can make that part of the mayor's wellness, and that we will knock it down.
Knock it down.
So it had been, forgive me, it had been some time since Mr. Zapata presented in front of council, so I thought it worthwhile just to bring some of the renderings back for people to refresh the memories of the proposed project.
Nice job. Thank you.
Round 2. Similar to 8th and Main, this property will also, because the redevelopment area will also be a pilot payment in lieu of taxes. And we negotiated that with the developer. And the pilot will last how many years?
30.
30 years total, increasing slowly over time, and then so that it's not as heavy a burden at the beginning, but it's still substantially more than
Of a benefit to the borough than conventional taxes, correct?
Right, the conventional taxes would be. So at the end of the day, in the beginning, we'll start generating more revenue. And one of the things, if you looked at our tax base right now as a pie, about 85% of it is residential, only 15% is commercial. This goes towards increasing that commercial aspect, which is vitally important to give some relief to the residential. But any questions for our redevelopment attorney, Bill Northgrave, who's here?
This is on the Havens and Hampton property, right?
Yes.
All right, so I am also opening this up to public comment as well. No.
You've already had public
Already had
comment.
public comment. Thank you. All right, well, I will offer and move for adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Councilman Dyke?
Yes.
Councilman Dever?
Yes.
Councilman Dean?
Yes.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Mayor Doherty?
Yes. The next is the consent agenda. I will offer and move for adoption of the consent agenda.
Your
Bill,
second?
you're worth every dime we paid you tonight.
I said no and no, the 2 questions you asked. And just to be clear, Mr. DePep is paying me, and NW Financial will be here tonight, so I don't want the borough or the residents here to think that I sat here on their dime, I sat here on Mr. DePep's dime.
Now get out of here.
I'll see you next month for the public hearing on the pilot.
Thank you.
Too late for me to go to law school.
Do
Oh,
you have a second?
second for the consent agenda?
Second.
Councilman Dyke?
Yes.
Councilman Dever?
Yes.
Councilman Dean?
Real quick, create an addendum to the BMIA LLC lease. What's the addendum?
That's for the Jersey Shore barbecue. They have a smoker at the back of the building, which is on our property. So it's,
I can't remember now. Okay, yes.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Mayor Doherty?
Yes. Next are ordinances. First ordinance is first reading introduction. Ordinance 2013-12, ordinance of Borough of Belmar, Monmouth, approving application for a long-term tax exemption authorization and execution of a financial agreement with 500 Main Street. Basically, we just talked about this is the ordinance part of the agreement. So I'll offer for first reading.
Second?
Councilman Dyke?
Yes.
Councilman Dever?
Yes.
Councilman Dean?
Just how long, this is a long-term tax exempt, how long is that? Did you say?
It's a 30-year pilot.
30-year pilot. Tax exempt in 30 years, what do you mean?
Pilot program that it has 30 years.
He is not gonna pay taxes for 30 years, he's gonna do a payment in lieu of taxes.
Okay, thank you, yes.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Mayor Darden?
Yes, the second reading will be August 3rd.
Yes.
Okay,
Seven.
August 7th, which is the
Let's
first,
get this right.
oh yeah, first Wednesday in August.
First one.
Because we canceled July 17th meeting, the third Wednesday in July. Next, the second reading, ordinance 2013-9, ordinance amending supplementing chapter 50? 40. 40, the rules and regulations, revised general ordinances of the Borough of Belmar, section 2, impervious area, section 5, zoning district regulations. This is the impervious lot coverage ordinance that we looked at. It makes some amendments based on suggestions from the zoning board that they wrote us a letter back in December, I think it was, or January. Basically, it gives people 50% credit for certain pavers that are pervious. Also gives them credit for installing a drainage system that has to be approved by our building inspector, and also takes pools out of the calculation as an impervious lot coverage as well. So this is second reading and public hearing. So I will open up, do I need to make a motion before a public hearing? Yeah, public hearing first. So I will make a motion and move for its adoption.
Second.
Second, okay. What's that?
The public hearing first.
I did it first and a second, so now we open up for a public hearing.
Yes.
Any comments, questions regarding just this ordinance? Yes, sir.
Gene Kramer, Fourth Avenue. Actually, I got two ordinances in my hand. One was introduced on June 5th, and one was introduced tonight. Which one are we discussing?
The one introduced tonight, there were changes to it between then and now.
Okay, thank you.
Regarding the types
So
of.
the final language tonight
Final
is what
language.
we're discussing.
Thank you.
All right, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now I'll make a motion and move for adoption, ordinance 2013-9.
Second.
Councilman Dyke?
Yes.
Councilman Dever?
Yes.
Councilman Dean?
Yes.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Mayor Darden?
Yes. That ends our resolution and ordinances, and now is public session. So, the way public session works, raise your hand, we can be called on, come up to the microphone, state your name, address for the record, and you have 5 minutes to talk about whatever you'd like or ask any questions. Yes, Gene?
Gene Kramer, Fourth Avenue. On the ordinance that was just approved, I guess we have a question. Mayor Dodd, do you have a swimming pool?
I do.
Claire Dyke, do you have a swimming pool?
Wish I did, but I don't.
Councilman Govern, do you have
I
a
do.
swimming pool?
Yes.
Jim Beam, do you have a swimming pool?
Absolutely not.
I know.
Shiny plastic.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. But Mayor Dodd, you're a direct beneficiary of the ordinance that you just voted on, right? In other words, swimming pools no longer count as impervious cover now. You benefit from that, don't you?
I'll ask the attorney.
Yes.
No, I mean, everyone has a swimming pool in the pool.
No, only two people have a swimming pool.
Okay.
I don't have a
I
swimming
don't
pool.
see that as a benefit, conflict, or anything.
Well, the swimming pool is no longer classified as impervious coverage, so you go ahead and put additional improvements on your property now, right?
In theory, I could. In theory, I could. How about this? And I don't know if this is okay. Could we, I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but.
No, actually, what I was looking, I'll tell you what.
Vote. I'd be happy to recuse myself.
Mayor Doherty, actually what I was looking for is, everybody made a big deal about Mr. Bean's accessory dwelling structure and said that he should have not voted on the issue. And you have a swimming pool, and Councilman McCoven, you have a swimming pool also. What's the difference?
Well, the difference, and it's a major difference, is the attorney advised Councilman Bean not to vote on it. If the attorney advises you not to vote on it, I will not vote on it. So if you're saying you think that we should retake the vote,
No.
and the attorney tells you we shouldn't vote on it, I won't vote on it.
It's a different set of rules for me than the rest.
Okay.
No, that's sir. If the attorney advises you not to vote on it, you don't vote on it.
I don't know about the prior issue with Councilman Dean's, whatever the structure was. I don't know anything about it. I mean, I'm advising that I don't see it as an issue, but if council, if you're more comfortable recusing yourself, then recuse yourself.
Well, how would we do that? Can we retake the vote?
You can retake the vote.
Okay, Councilman McGovern, you want to step off the dais with me and have them retake the vote?
Let's go swimming.
And a motion to adopt the ordinance?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, Councilman Becky? Yes. Councilman Dean?
Yes.
Yes.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Big splash.
Drowning here. Let's go.
Another, yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm Martha Maselko, and I live at 102 North Boulevard. And I am before you to talk about Lake Como, because the perception of many people who live around Lake Como, which has flooded several times, is that there's not active interest in Belmar in pursuing a resolution to the lake. And even tonight, when people talk about the lakes, they don't say the lakes, they say Silver Lake. And that would be an example of the perception and how it's continued. Also, even like the North Boulevard sign, it says Ocean Avenue North Boulevard, that's been down for a long, long time. No one's put it back up. They just recently fixed where you look, where the lake is and all the dumping that was there. That's just been recently fixed. It's been a long, long time. And I guess I see such interest in the rest of the part of the town, and I applaud you all for that. I think it's wonderful. I just feel like we're kind of forgotten. And so what I'd like to know is, what is your active role? Because I know that's the three towns. And I just want to know, like, is any engineer from Belmar taking an active look at what the permanent resolution for Lake Como could be? Because it really does affect many, many people, the flooding. And now the season is upon us. It's taken a long time to even look at it. And now I'm so happy that Silver Lake, you have a solution for that. And it sounds very good, so I applaud you for that. So my interest is really Lake Como, obviously, because I live right there and have been experiencing the flooding. So could you update me as to what is being done and what your role is in being active about it?
Sure. I mean, we've met with both Lake Como and, when I say Lake Como, I mean the borough, and also Spring Lake, and also Sparson, because they're involved as well. And we put in how much money we put in? $43,000 towards the outflow pipe. You know, Silver Lake, as you know, is 100% in Belmar.
Right,
So
right.
we are somewhat dependent on our partners. Now, for the part of the lake, we have built up the berm. You've seen that.
Yes.
So that's one thing we've done. But we have to work with these other government agencies, or rather, these other municipal governments, plus one agency, the SMRSA, the Southern Wellness Sewer Authority. And I believe that they are taking a lead on the engineering, not us. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So we're at, you know, we're part of it, but we're not taking a lead on it. We're the smallest part of Lake Como. More of the town of Lake Como borders the lake than we do. So, okay.
And it's important to note that the hazard mitigation money that we discussed earlier.
Right, right,
Silver Lake,
yeah.
were also submitted for Lake Como. That
Right.
is the three-town partnership. And so it's a very similar grant, it's a very similar position as Silver Lake in that we are waiting to see what projects will be awarded that hazard mitigation money in order to finish what has been engineered as the solution for Lake Como.
Do you feel that the three towns by themselves can work together to get it done, or should there be another party that should oversee it and be responsible? It seems like, because I have talked to the different town people, and they kind of blame the other towns. Do you know, I don't get a sense of,
That's not our experience on the ground, I'll just have to tell you. I mean,
Okay.
our DPWs have excellent working relationships. I talk to the business administrators in those towns weekly. Before storm events, we're talking daily. The coordination before these last set of storms, again, we were talking multiple times a day.
but I will just tell you, this last storm that they thought would be a big storm, it took 4 hours to get the pump to get here. I don't know how long it took to get here, but by the time they got the pumps and they had the 3 pipes, then they had to add a 4th pipe. If it had been a big storm, it never would have worked. It was insufficient. And I guess if that is the solution and there's nothing stronger, it's not going to work. And it's very clear to a lot of people that it's not going to work.
Did you guys flood again since Sandy?
No. They did down on Lake Como when it overflowed.
This part,
Yeah, that part did, but not by Belmar. It didn't, but it did flood down by Lake Como. It's not sufficient in terms of even the time that it takes, and the pumps were much smaller. So I'm just concerned because people talk about the money, and there is money, and if people don't take a real interest in Lake Como, I think it'll get lost.
Well, it certainly won't get lost, absolutely not. But
And it is actively discussed.
right, and if you leave your email, Colleen will make sure she keeps up to date on all the information she has.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
thanks so much. Ooh, wow, which one to choose?
Ted Eman, 1218 Oakwood. I need a clarification. I know you mentioned it tonight in the opening, Mayor, about, you said that now FEMA's going to 90% cost share, and you were using that as a rationale dealing with something. I did see the press release, I think it was around the 26th or 27th, the borough press release on FEMA 90%. And it mentioned that you were notified late on Tuesday, the 25th. Can you share that? Like, how did you get notified? Who notified you from FEMA?
I think it was actually Congressman Chris Smith's office.
Chris Smith's office
Called you. Did they call anybody else in the district?
You mean like,
And is this just Belmar, we get 90%, or?
no,
Is that for what?
no. Yeah, I don't know who else they called, I didn't ask him.
So who was, do you remember who was in Chris's office?
I don't know, but I'm sure you could, if you're interested, you could call there.
Yeah, I know, I talk to him all
I
the
think there
time.
was an APP article on it as well.
Oh.
That
That
said,
was out that night.
yeah, it said everybody.
Okay, great, all right, and also I want to say I'm very sorry to hear about your discovery.
Well,
Um,
I thought you meant my son. No,
No,
I'm so sorry.
You have more bad news for me?
So sorry. I'm sorry.
You do? I don't want any more bad news. But also, I wanted to remind you that July is Bladder Cancer Month. And you don't hear a lot about it, but it's one of the top killers. It's in the top 5, especially for men. More men get it than women, but women are not immune to it. The average age that you should really start worrying about it is 55. I got it at 57, and I got it like most people, got it too late, almost too late. So the problem with bladder cancer is you just live your life normally. There's really no symptoms, none, until you're already at stage 2, and then you're in a battle for your life. So I would like, as far as the wellness, Mayor's Wellness Council, to educate, because you have to do, this is one, and I mean, these are hundreds of thousands of Americans die of bladder cancer every year. And it requires doing preventative medicine.
being scoped when you don't even feel bad. Because by the time you get the symptom, you may be already in advanced stage 2. And it's usually that's when you start to notice that there's something wrong, okay?
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Yes, David?
Showing you some mercy on scratch the whole thing.
Just left 3 things down here, okay? Being, mindful of the time.
Name and address for the record.
Oh, okay, if anybody doesn't know that by now, David Schneck, 302 C Street. The 1.1 million that Mr. Bean wants to bond for Silver Lake, Brian, he's not proposing that comes from the water and sewer $5 million bond, right? You were saying you didn't want to see that taken out.
I don't know where we would get $1 million.
Yeah, but it had nothing to do with that, right?
I mean, we did bond it, and so in other words, but I don't think we specified it had to go to the infrastructure of clean water for other areas of town. But
Well, I don't think one had anything to do with the other, really.
Well, I think that the intention of the $5 million certainly was for clean drinking water, bathing.
Right, yeah.
And now,
But this is flood mitigation, one has nothing
I
to do
don't
with
want to
the other.
rob Peter to pay Paul.
Well, I don't know who suggested doing that.
I'm just saying that I would never be in favor if there was a suggestion,
But there wasn't.
Have $5 million.
Okay, well, there was never any suggestion that money, that be touched, not that I ever saw.
Well, someone said we wanted to go right away with this.
Right.
So, with the $1 million, the $5 million has already been approved, so you could go right away with that.
No, but that's for something completely different. He's saying to bond that, I assume he means on top of everything else, maybe we could take money out of the marina, because that's not a matter of life and death. I think, keeping the water out of people's houses is more important than the marina, which doesn't even hardly make anything for us. But Military Appreciation Day, that's Saturday, is that? I remember, I think it was last year, we just happened to be out there on that Saturday, and they had a mock water rescue with helicopters and flares and all that. It was like a demonstration of a military, of a Coast Guard rescue at sea. And I'm sorry.
Sea rescue.
Yeah. Do you know if there's any plans to do that again this year? Because I'd like to make sure to be on the beach when they do it. That was so much fun to watch.
We're working on it. It's a little tough, July 4th weekend, military resources are stretched a little thin, but we're working to have something similar.
That was last year, right? They had the Coast Guard helicopters and the guy rappelled down into the water and they rescued him, and that was really great. We thought it was real at first, so we didn't know of it. And just one comment about this, the difference between your swimming pools and Jim's apartment there is that with the swimming pools, Gene came up here and identified himself and said where he was, so, but with Jim's case, it was from anonymous, so I guess that makes it more important, so that's it, thank you.
Mr. Dilberg, what's that number, Mr. Dilberg?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Tom Dilberg, 1000 River Road. I just have one thing. It's been mentioned about the new bar and restaurant in the Marina. The Marina, 9th Avenue bar. I never thought that there would be that much foot traffic, but there is quite a bit that comes down 10th Avenue, crosses 35. And as a walker, you've noticed me a couple of times. That's a dicey light, 10th and 35. Is 35 state or county road?
State.
State? Well, that light, we could use 5 would be okay, but 10 more seconds of light, of green to cross. 10 seconds would be sufficient. It's not sufficient now for somebody that's not alert, aware. It's not sufficient. I'm aware, I'm alert, and I'm not loaded. So I get across there all right, but just all right. 5 to 10 more seconds would be good. If you could contact...
We can talk DOT. I will tell you that their overriding mission, I guess, is to move traffic.
Of course.
So, you know, I think that sometimes pedestrians get shortchanged in that, but they're, you know, if they're gonna delay, if they're gonna have a longer red light, I'm just saying, it's difficult to do. You know, we've had people want us having to install other lights along Route 35. But again, you know, their whole thing, think about the state, right? Their whole thing is traffic flow and getting traffic moving as quickly and as safely as possible. It doesn't seem like they're that interested in pedestrians. So we can certainly ask, but I would not get your whole.
Circumstances have changed now.
Yeah, they're right.
We have more traffic, more foot traffic going across. 8th Avenue isn't quite as bad, but it's not good either. 5 seconds there would be good too, and sufficient. But definitely 10 seconds at 10th Avenue.
We will absolutely ask. But like I said, it's a tough one. All right, I'll make a motion to close the public meeting and
second it.
adjourn and all that good stuff.
Second.
Aye. Everyone have a happy 4th.
We're almost there.
Vote for end the meeting.
Thank you.